So today I'm going to be discussing the engineer Jude Navarro, and we'll be discussing why I think it's important that you unlock him now if you don't already have him unlocked. Now, this engineer is for engineering your suits and some of your equipment for the Odyssey content. And even if you don't like doing any of the Space Legs content right now, I would still highly recommend unlocking this engineer now while it's still very easy to do. And in the video today, I will be showing you why I think it's a must to unlock this engineer now while you have the opportunity to do it easily. And I'll also be showing you kind of how to actually do it and the easy way to do it. Now, the main reason you want to unlock this engineer right now is that in order to unlock this engineer, you have to do 10 restore or reactivation missions for surface settlements. Now, without the Thargoid war content, the only way to do these missions is to find systems in a particular state, and then they would have to have surface settlements that needed to be repaired. And you could spend days and days in an hour in the galaxy map just searching for the right system that has the right state, and also will actually offer missions to reactivate a surface settlement. These missions would normally only appear after natural disasters or some other certain system BGS states. But the Thargoid War brought with it AX recovery, or post-Thargoid recovery states. And these would appear after human-populated systems were liberated from Thargoid occupation. Now that the Thargoid War is over, there currently is only one system left in the galaxy which is offering these missions, and that is in Sol, while it still needs to be repaired. Once all the surface settlements in Sol are fully repaired, these reactivation missions will no longer be easily acquired. Currently, finding them is as easy as going to Sol and docking at a station and just grabbing the missions. They're always going to be there. Once the Thargoid War content is fully over and Sol is fully repaired, finding these missions in the future will take you probably weeks of actually searching for them to be able to get your 10 to complete to unlock your engineer. So again, even if you don't think you're ever going to do Odyssey content enough to where you're going to want to engineer your suits, I would still recommend doing it now. So if in the future, if you do decide to enter that gameplay, you have it done. Because it'll only take you a short while to do right now while it's easy. So once you arrive in Sol and you see any surface settlement that has this X marked over it like I've highlighted down in my nav panel, those show the surface settlements that are still going to be triggering missions for restoring or repairing because they're still out of service. And in the future, once the Thargoid content is fully done and Sol is fully restored, if you're trying to find these missions later in like post-recovery states in other systems, this is how you determine whether or not you're even going to find the missions. If there's no Odyssey systems that have that X over it, then no missions will be generated in that system for restoration. Now, in order to find these missions, you just have to dock at any station or settlement that's available to you. Now, normally to find these restoration missions, you would dock at any station or main planetary surface settlement, and you would disembark and go into one of the terminals inside the station, and you would find your missions under the support category there for power restoration. During recording this raw video on Christmas morning from preparing for this video, currently none of the stations or surface settlements in Sol were repaired, so there was nowhere that you had the option of disembarking. So you just go to any station and dock. And even though the station's not fully repaired, you can't disembark, but you can still access the mission board, and under the support category, you'd find the missions. Now, if from the time I upload this video, probably on Boxing Day, the weekly tick will be over, and there might be maybe 1 or 2 stations which are fully repaired. And if there are at that point, you can dock at those stations, and you can disembark and go inside, and you'd be able to see the missions there as well. Then once you're docked, you just make sure you select the support category and it'll list all the missions. Now, when you're looking at the list of the reactivation missions, you want to avoid the ones that say find power regulator, because these ones you're actually going to have to go out and source a power regulator and steal them from other functional outposts in different systems. And it's kind of a pain. It's going to slow you down and it's going to add time to do these missions. So instead, focus only on the ones that say restore power. These ones, they will provide you with the power regulator for the mission. But this regulator will be unique to the mission, so if you die during this mission, you will automatically fail it. And I will show you some kind of easy ways to ensure that you don't die while you're doing this if you're not already equipped with some decent gear. Now, after you accept a mission, it'll give you about a 6-hour window to complete it. Completing these missions will only take you a few minutes each, so if you grabbed all 10 missions, 6 hours gives you plenty of time to, more than enough time to finish all 10 of them. The mission is not complete though until you return to the station and turn them all in. So I would suggest grabbing all of your restoration missions from the same station so that when you're finished and you go to turn them all back in, you don't have to hop back and forth between several different stations. Just grab them all from the same place. Now, for what kind of equipment or ship to use for doing these missions, I would recommend using any of the newer ships that have come out. It doesn't have to be the Cobra Mark V like I have. It could be any of them. It could be the Mandalay even, or the Type 8, or any of these new ships that work well with the SCO. All you need is an SRV bay in it, and that's it. And the reason why you want to use the newer ships is because you're going to have to travel from planet to planet to planet to finish these missions off. And having one of the newer ships that do well with the SEO to just rip back and forth across Sol here to complete these different planets is going to save you a lot of time. And if you're really new to the game or don't have that many credits to have bought any of the new ships, then, just putting an SEO drive on any of the ships would work. You just might have to fuel up more frequently because the older ships that aren't optimized for the SEO burn your fuel up very, very fast when you go into SEO mode and Super Cruise. Now, as far as your space legs equipment, you will need a Maverick suit, so if you don't already have one, you just go to any Frontier supply that you're able to get access to in any system, and you can buy your Maverick suit there. I would recommend buying the highest level suit that they have. Some stations will have like a tier 2 or tier 3 suit. If you can find those, it's worth paying the price and buying them. As far as weapons go, whatever weapons you prefer and that you're best with. Now, as far as finding the settlements for where to do these missions, all the settlements are going to be highlighted in, the blue like they do with all mission targets. So just go to your closest one and head to the settlement, and I'll kind of show you from there what we do. Now, as you approach the surface settlement, just take a quick look at the settlement layout, and it'll just speed you up in being able to find the power building once you land. Now, the power building will usually always have this kind of round dome sticking out of the top, which is where the reactor is. And the power buildings always have PWR written on the side of them as well. I'll usually like to land a little distance from the settlement in case the settlement does happen to have NPC raiders and scavengers. And then you're just not dragging all of their aggro immediately before you even have a chance to get out of your ship. So once you're here, you're just going to disembark, and we'll drive our SRV into the settlement because until we get the power activated at the settlement, the SRV is going to be our only source of power to recharge our suit or pick up new ammo or anything else that we need until we get the settlement reactivated. You can have power cells or batteries you can carry with you, but the same thing is once you are kind of run out of them, the Maverick suit only carries 2. This is going to be your easier source to get them. Instead of looking around the settlement trying to find batteries, you can just come back to your SRV and grab them out of its inventory. The nice thing about the SRV is if you go to your contacts, it'll actually show you all of the materials that can be collected in the settlement within range of your SRV sensors. Then you can see whether or not it's worth your time to actually go around and farm for any of those materials, especially if you're looking for something particular. Now, this first settlement that I'm arriving at, there's not any scavengers or pirates here, and it's a pretty small, simple layout. So we'll just hop out and we'll head straight to the power building. And since we already kind of got a reference of where the power building is when we did a flyover, I already know where it is and I can head straight to it. And you can also see, the PWR written on the side of the building as we approach it. Now, even though there's no scavengers or pirates here yet, we don't want to hang around for too long, because if you're in a settlement for too long, sometimes they will have dropships arrive and spawn in. Now there might only be one dropship with 2 or 3, or there might be 3 or 4 dropships, and you'll find yourself overrun with like a dozen or more scavengers. So if you've not done this before, bring out your cutting tool, and you just want to cut off the red panel near the door. And once that's exposed, you switch to your recharge tool, hit the reload button, and it'll change to the overcharge mode. And you'll see using your cutting tool and the charge tool uses up your battery. And if you have to cut through several doors, you might have to keep recharging your suit. It's one of the reasons why you want to bring your SRV with you, because sometimes you might have to cut through several doors before you're able to get power back to the station. And you don't want to be wasting your time looking around the settlement trying to find a battery pack. You can just simply run back to your SRV and grab one, or even just sit in it and recharge your suit. And once you find yourself in the actual reactor room, you'll have one more door to cut through. And you'll see here they do happen to have some batteries in the walls, but that's not always going to be the case. And if you don't have enough charge in your suit, you won't be able to force the doors open. So I'm just quickly recharging my suit here. Do the same thing, we'll cut the panel and overcharge the door with our charging tool again. And then we'll finally be in the reactor room. And once you're in the reactor room, if you go right beside the reactor will always have the spot where you insert your power regulator. The power regulator is just basically an energy cell that jump starts the reactor. So just make sure you place it in the inventory. And then we go to the reactor panel and we turn the reactor on. Now it is important to wait for the reactor to fully come on before leaving the settlement. I've made that mistake before where I hit the button to start the reactor, ran straight to my SRV and left, and it didn't give me credit for doing the mission. And it will actually use up your power specific or your mission specific power regulator, and you can't redo the mission. You just end up failing it and you have to abandon it. So just kind of hang out a little bit. It only takes about a minute for the reactor to fully power up. And once it does, it'll give you credit, and then you can leave the settlement. And while you're waiting for it to come online, it's a good opportunity to start stealing some of this loot, because it's all of this stuff you use for engineering your suits. If you ever find suit schematics, weapon schematics, or building plans, those are really important things to take, as those are what you specifically use for upgrading your weapons and your suits. But the building schematics is something that you use for unlocking another engineer as well. And once the building is fully restored, if you wanted to spend the extra time, I would recommend downloading the data from the data pads. These data pads is also where you're going to have a chance of finding your manufacturing instructions, which is another material that you need to pretty much upgrade anything, whether it's your weapons or your suits. And once you've gathered any of the loot that you have any interest in gathering, you just head back to your SRV and to your ship, and I'll show you 2 or 3 other settlements here and kind of how I deal with some scavengers and pirates. Now, when you arrive at a settlement that's on the dark side of a planet, it is definitely worth surveying it with your ship ahead of time, just to see exactly where the power station is, especially in these larger settlements, because they can be difficult to navigate when you are on foot or in your SRV with the limited lighting. And we can see where the power building is here. You see the dome on top, and we see the PWR, and we can see it's right behind this command building. So we want to make sure that we keep that as a point of reference once we start coming here with our SRV. It'll make things a lot easier for you, because with the very limited lighting that you have in your SRV or on foot, it can be definitely a pain to find these if you don't already have an idea of the layout. And you can see, as I mentioned earlier, there weren't any scavengers or pirates here when we first arrived, but now that we've been on the ground, we've had a few drop ships lower down and drop off a bunch of enemies. So the easiest way to deal with these guys, especially if you're getting heavily outnumbered and if you don't have good gear, is just stay in your SRV and just use your SRV turret to kill everything. This is one of the other reasons why it's good to bring it. So most of these guys are like commando level NPCs, which make sure that they have a lot of shields and they have a lot of armor. You should be able to handle most of this though fairly easily with your SRV. And if you just draw them out a little distance, and that way they kind of funnel towards you, and you can kind of get a kill zone area, and then you just keep on shooting them down with your SRV turret. And now I'll just kind of fast forward through here a little bit and kind of show you me killing them all down with the SRV. And as you can see, there was actually quite a high number of these enemies, so it's a lot easier to deal with them using the SRV turret than it would be to be on foot and fighting, a couple of dozen of commando level scavengers on foot. And now that we've dealt with all of the scavenger commandos, as you recall, when we first approached the settlement and looked at the layout, that we saw that the power building was behind the command building here and connected through a tunnel. And so we'll start heading through that tunnel here now. And as you can see, if we didn't already know this is the layout, we could potentially have a difficult time finding this power room because it's dark everywhere, and to not know that we had to, go through tunnels of the command room to eventually get back to the power building. And so doing that initial survey of the settlement with your ship would definitely save you a lot of time, especially if you're on the dark side of a planet. Once you're in here, it's the exact same thing. You put your power regulator in the slot here and go turn on the reactor and just wait for the power to come back on before you leave the settlement. Now, with what I've shown you so far between these two settlements, should basically give you all the information you need to handle any settlement with these missions. Now, in order to complete the mission, again, we're going to return back to the station where we accepted the missions, and we'll turn them all in and complete them there. Now, the last thing that I'll show you here is for finding the best loot in these settlements. Any settlement that has an actual command building, like this settlement does, will have a locker in that command room, which will always have the most valuable loot in it. And I'll cut to a scene here and show you that here now. Now, once you enter into the command room, when you just walk into the middle of the command room, you see there's this little middle part, and it'll have this large locker in it. This particular lock in the command room is always going to have your best loot. This is where you're going to find most of your suit schematics, weapon schematics, and other high-value items you need for upgrading your equipment. And this is really, if you have a command room in a settlement, it's really the only locker worth breaking into. All the other ones are just going to give you your low-level shit. And with that, this is the end of the video, and hopefully you guys enjoy and are able to get that engineer unlocked while it's still easy going.